Hello, everyone. It's Grace Pedota from the Canadian Securities Exchange, and welcome to our weekly Tech Tuesday virtual session. This week, we will be highlighting publicly listed companies. Before I introduce our moderator today, I would like to take a moment to tell you about CSE TV on YouTube, the Canadian Securities Exchange forum for conversations with business leaders and entrepreneurs. I put the link to CSE TV in the chat room up above here on the right of your screen. When you have a minute, check out the link and subscribe to CSE TV on YouTube. This is where you can catch all of the replays and access more great content. Without further ado, I am going to introduce our moderator today, Barrington Miller. Good luck with the show today, Barrington.
Thank you, Grace, and thank you to everyone online joining us live today. Typically on Tech Tuesdays, we feature private companies, but the first Tuesday of every month, we have the privilege and honor of featuring some of our publicly listed and traded companies. Our objective in running Tech Tuesday is twofold. First, we want to help the technology companies to increase their traction. And second, we want to help the capital markets players by introducing them to interesting companies. As you know, for attendees, we ask that you share your ideas and your feedback with our presenters, including leads, possible funding opportunities after due diligence, etc. You can contact them via their information, which will appear on the chat board. Speaking of the chat board, we ask that you keep it PG and friendly. This is a family show after all. Some housekeeping matters. You will note a red reconnect tab at the top of your screen. If you lose audio, just click it and you will be reconnected. In the event that there are technical problems, you may hit restart. We aim to run between 45 minutes to an hour. Each presenter will have approximately 8 minutes. And this is the Mark Francis disclaimer. This presentation is for information purposes only and is not a solicitation to make an investment in either shares or debt or buy or sell the stock. Blah, blah, blah. Each company, after their presentation, will have a Q&A, which either I'll ask the questions or we encourage our audience to participate and submit some of your questions. And this Q&A will be moderated by yours truly. So, without further ado, today we have as presenters Jay Hutton, co-founder, CEO, president, and director of VSBLTY, and Silas Garrison, CEO of HealthSpace Data Systems Ltd. Let's start with Silas. Silas Garrison is the CEO. He is a seasoned business leader and tech entrepreneur. He oversaw the development and deployment of HealthSpace's premier product line, HealthSpace CS Pro. Prior to joining HealthSpace in a full-time capacity, Mr. Garrison designed and built the company's industry-first iPad and Android environmental health inspection apps. He has a vast amount of experience, ranging from Fortune 500 banks to sports and media conglomerates. Without further ado, Mr. Garrison.
Awesome. Thank you, Barrington. Appreciate the warm intro. So HealthSpace is, at its core, we are a software as a service, a SaaS company operating in the government space. We operate what's really known as government tech, GovTech market space in terms of helping government operate more efficiently. And at the end of the day, when it comes to our technology, that's all we really focus on is how can we help government operate more efficiently. I think it's something that a lot of people probably can concur with and agree with in terms of a mission that can make a meaningful impact in this world. So our technology runs the gamut in terms of the features that we offer and obviously the product suite. So I'm going to click through just a few slides to get to some of our product profiles. So just bear with me 1 second. So our solutions that we offer to these government agencies runs the gamut from cloud all the way to mobile. We also have a fintech component that we've recently launched and are under development. So our cloud technology is really first of its kind and one of the most cutting edge elements in terms of the GovTech space. So government and technology, a little bit of a backstory is that government, when they go to adopt a technological platform or some sort of digital solution, there's a lot of friction that goes with that. They typically have to spend months and months detailing their work processes. And government, as most people can understand, they have a lot of information that they collect, a lot of things that they're responsible for. Now, we sell predominantly into the state and local government. And these are agencies that are responsible, such as health departments, responsible for regulating food service, regulating food safety, issuing permits to schools, to daycares, hotels, everything that you may come into contact with as just a citizen in terms of a private business that is regulated by a health department. And so our mission is to help them stand up a digital solution as quickly as possible with as much flexibility and create as much efficiency. So our cloud solution allows them to self-serve the product. As I mentioned just a moment ago, there's a lot of friction when they go out to adopt technology in this space. I have spent almost 20 years working with actually one of our competitors originally in terms of delivering solutions to state and local government. And the approach with almost every single vendor in this space is that a software engineer has to get involved. I myself have a deep experience and history in terms of software development. And really one of the growing passions and what drives us is allowing the government to make changes on the fly through their very complex requirements without having to have a software engineer. And that's exactly what HS Cloud is. We also have HS Touch, which is our mobile application. This is for field inspectors. Think a sanitarian who goes into a restaurant and gives a restaurant their score or grade when it comes to sanitary conditions. They can utilize our iPad and mobile app to go out and perform this inspection digitally. It saves them a vast amount of time, typically whether they have some sort of digital solution or whether they may be a government agency that's still on pen and paper. It takes a long time to fill out all of this information, detail their observations, and notate what might have been wrong at a particular restaurant or location. What this does is it saves them time, gives them access to more information within an iPad that they wouldn't have with pen and paper. And if they're not, most of the competitors in this space don't even offer any sort of mobile solution. So one, if they're using pen and paper, this is a vast improvement. And if they are using some sort of competitive solution, typically they have to carry around a clunky laptop with some sort of desktop as software. So this is much more cutting edge and more nimble. We also have My Health Department, which is a portal that is targeted towards the private industry that are regulated by these government health departments. And, these are private business owners, operators, managers that have to access this regulatory data. And it's all seamlessly bolted together in a very cohesive platform that allows them immediate access to real-time governmental data that they have to interact with. And then we have HS Pay, which is our fintech solution that I mentioned. HS Cloud, I clicked the wrong button. So HS Cloud really is, as I mentioned, is one of the first fully customizable self-serve products in the government space. It's one of our biggest disruptors in terms of how we plan to approach growing in the GovTech space. Government agencies are so used to going through long, month-long cycles in terms of detailing their data entry requirements, what their business workflows are, and what sort of business intelligence requirements they have. With our platform, as opposed to other platforms that exist out there, they can go into a wizard-like interface and define it all themselves. This is something that in most tech companies that are in the private sector, think of like a Salesforce.com. You can set up your rules, your data collection requirements, your flows yourself. But that doesn't really exist in the government space. We're one of the first ones to really go out and create such a platform. HS Touch, one of the cool things about that is that it also works offline. We have in this day and age kind of constant connectivity when it comes to the internet, but it's not always feasible when you may be inspecting a restaurant that is, they have a basement and there's not a good cell reception. And so this works disconnected from the internet and synchronizes up directly to our HS Cloud system as soon as they have an internet connection. In My Health Department, which I'm going to just, for time's sake, go into HS Pay. HS Pay is a fintech solution that we are collaborating with and building in conjunction with PayPal to deliver online payment solutions that these government agencies can immediately deploy with a click that immediately bolt on to our HS Cloud system. They utilize our platform for everything from inspectors in the field, as I mentioned, to issuing permits. And they also utilize our system for back office accounting, which means they issue all of their invoices that go to these private businesses. You know, everything within government typically comes with some sort of fee structure. And this is now automated through both our HS Cloud and now our brand new HS Pay platform, which helps reconcile the actual payment portion from the private businesses aspect. So this is one of those things that's really cutting edge and really makes the lives of both the business owners and the government agencies much easier. Leveraging PayPal gives us a lot of power in terms of feature sets and flexibility to be able to offer something that is both secure, robust, and easy and flexible out the gate. And I'm going to jump back, since I do have just a few seconds, to my health department. You know, my health department is a web-based platform. And the biggest thing about this is that we've consistently consolidated the way that private businesses or private citizens interact with government information. You know, why does that matter? The way that this matters in terms of how we approach it is that we've consistently boiled down all of the nuances that come with government agencies. No two government agencies really operate alike. And what we've been able to do is kind of bake it down to commonalities, whether it's, you know, two cities that are next to each other and you operate, you know, coffee shops or restaurants in both cities, or even when we're talking about, you know, cross-border. We have customers in both the US and Canada that go to this platform to be able to access the regulatory information. We've been able to, through the use of machine learning, actually whittle down the commonalities in terms of, you know, this is what you're going to see with this type of government agency, and provide some sort of deeper insight to the private businesses for them to understand what sort of potential deficiency they have when it comes to how they're operating from a health and safety aspect. All right, Barrington, I think I closed out my sentence just in time.
Yes, you did. No, that was great and very concise. Thank you. Thank you for that, Silas. We're going to move on to Jay Hutton, co-founder, CEO, and president director of VSBLTY. Jay is a seasoned software executive with a 25-year career. He began his career at Gandalf Technologies. And for our audience, if you're listening, for bonus points, tell us the character in the movie where Gandalf came from. An Ottawa-based pioneer of data communications and technology in 1988. He later served as a country manager Canada of Ascend Communications during their rapid growth, public offering, and ultimate sale to Lucent Technologies in 1999. He then spent the next 10 years as president and CEO of a privately financed private company that ultimately went public. Prior to starting VSBLTY, Jay managed the introduction of electronic payment options to New York City's 13,000 taxi cabs that also functioned as an in-vehicle media outlet for local news and weather. Without further ado, Jay.
Thank you, Barrington, and thank you, everybody, for taking the time this afternoon. You know, it's rare that we get an opportunity to speak not necessarily about the mechanics of the public company, but about the underlying tech. And at the end of the day, I'm kind of a geek, so I love the opportunity to be able to do this. VSBLTY is a computer vision company. We sit in this broad category everybody's heard of and perhaps not really understands because it's such a broad category. Artificial intelligence is the sort of lane that we sit in. We use computer vision for the things that we deliver, the software that we deliver. It's the same technology or the same category of technology that is responsible for autonomous vehicles. At the end of the day, a car you buy in 2020 probably has 15 to 18 cameras on its perimeter and inside its interior. So we use some of the same capabilities, of course, manifested initially for other marketplaces, for two dominant marketplaces, retail and security. So we teach computers working alongside cameras to interpret live video streams. We do this for the purposes of multiple outcomes. The two marketplaces that we spend most of our time in are retail and security. We look for patterns in video streams. We look for persons in video streams. We look for specific identities in video streams. All these achieve multiple outcomes. I'm going to speak briefly about retail first. So we are, at the end of the day, an artificial intelligence company with computer vision components. We apply this, as I said, into multiple marketplaces. We use computer vision to inform a retailer as to the critical performance measurements and KPIs inside retail. An example of what those might be. A retailer might be interested in where people go when they come into the store. Do they go to the left? Do they go to the right? Do they go to dairy and then deli and then buy a bottle of wine and then leave? Are they there for 14 minutes or 40 minutes? All this information, again, anonymized, not connected to identity per se, is collected for the purposes of store optimization. And that's a computer vision challenge. Again, we are introducing this into the marketplace. It's just coming up to speed right now, but its efficacy and its usability is significant. Another place where we play a role in store, and this is critical. Stores are waking up to the reality that they have a captive audience. Not waking up to the reality, they're now applying that reality to digital footprints. I've got some slides here showing different digital displays in retail. What we do in concert with digital display is we measure the performance of that display in real time. And by measurement, I mean how many women, how many men, how many 35-year-old women, how many 35-year-old men. All of that delivered on an hour-by-hour, moment-by-moment basis in real time for two significant constituencies. One, the store themselves. They want to know what's happening in aisle in terms of traffic patterns. And brands, think Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Unilever, want to know how people are interacting with their messaging. Some examples are here on the screen where you can see a digital display delivering a message. It is a message that is meant for a specific audience. And we can measure the performance of that display. And by measurement, I mean this. We count the people that go past the display and don't look. We count the people that pass the display and look. We count the people that approach. We have demographic data on all those people, male, female. We have age ranges on all those people, and we have sentiment. How are they emotionally reacting to the display? That sounds crazy, but these are all artificial intelligence algorithms that can be applied to the computers that are underneath the cameras that are inside these displays. So all of these has, like I said, two significant constituencies. The retail themselves, everything they want to know about the store, how the store is functioning, what aisles have the most traffic, where the 25-year-old females go when they come into the store. Because they may not go to the same place that the 45-year-old females go. So knowing that information, gathering up that data in real time and reporting on that data in real time is critical to successful retail optimization. And secondarily, the brands that are all about delivering bespoke messages on the fly in retail to a specific audience. An example would be, because I have a camera on a digital display, I can play content to 25-year-old males on the fly. Maybe I'm launching an energy drink. Nobody over 30 drinks energy drinks. So I want to market to males under 30. When I see a male under 30, when the camera sees a male under 30, it can immediately trigger that ad to that person. So we're talking about custom triggered advertising. And I mentioned before, what retail is waking up to is this. IKEA said to us last week, we have 480 million people that come into one of our stores annually. And what retailers are discovering is that's advertising impressions. That's reaching people at a place where they're prepared to make a purchase. So they're very influenceable. We all think we're not, but we are. And you're at a place where you can purchase that which is being promoted to you. I'm going to advance here quickly. So we are a software as a service company. We have three discrete modules. We have data capture, which is the measurement piece, anonymous measurement. We have vision capture, which is the display piece, and we have vector. Vector is the persons of interest piece. This is our security platform. So instead of looking for anonymous analytics, I'm looking to find a specific person in a crowd. This is a loss prevention activity if you're looking in stores. It's also finding bad guys in cities or finding weapons in cities. So in addition to finding a specific person pulled from a database of persons that law enforcement might be looking for, we're also identifying weapons. And when we see a weapon, we alert on the weapon. I tell this really quick story, and it's very topical because last week, MGM lost an $800 million lawsuit launched by the families of the 58 victims that were shot by the madman in the 17th story or wherever it was. What people don't know about that story is that same guy went to the garage, and from his vehicle, he loaded weapons into a bag 3 different times. The problem is the 3 guys responsible for monitoring the 600 cameras didn't see it. What a great argument for using middleware, software that actually alerts the operator to something anomalous in the frame. We have weapons detection capability. We use machine learning and deep learning to identify weapons in the field of view, and we alert an operator to the fact that there's a weapon there. We do the same thing for multiple metrics, crowd behavior. If people are running from left of the camera to right of camera en masse, that's an event. We alert on that. So the concept is the Achilles heel of security, if we're speaking about security, is operators. There's too many cameras for too few operators. So the idea is artificial intelligence to inform that exercise. How do we transform public spaces? I've talked a little bit about this. There's multiple components. Digital display is an informational process of giving information to people, measuring their reception of that information, their attention to that information, and also the demographic pieces of it. We do this by facial analytics, the middle box in the middle. We do interactive touch. So in addition to measuring the delivery of that message, we also measure the interest areas, the places where people actually drill down for more information. So just like a click-through might be on the internet, this is an attention piece. Really quickly, a quick point I want to make as it relates to the internet is that's one of the things that you can take away for what visibility does. Google monetized the internet. They figured out how to build profiles in the late 90s and sell those profiles as an advertising bucket. We do the same thing in physical spaces. I have one more slide, but I'm not going to speak to it. I think I got through most of the points so far, and I appreciate your time. Thank you, Barrington.
No, thank you. Thank you both. So you both made it in and around the same time, which is good. So Mark Francis, if you're watching, take note. Now, speaking of Mark Francis, this is the portion that I have renamed the Francis Inquisition. So if I could be joined by both speakers, please. Awesome. This is where I'm going to throw some questions. Some you know about, some you don't. I want to jump into the technology aspect, and this is for both of you. Technology is really hot right now, and many companies are expanding. What competition are you finding in regards to hiring new staff for this expansion?
I'll go first. We've actually just landed, so unexpected consequence of COVID is that a lot of good companies laid off really good people. And we had the opportunity to sort of look and scan the horizon and find the people. We had specific requirements, and the people that we're looking for, these are not commodity people. They're not easy to find. And when we do find them, they tend to be 80% of what we want, not 100% of what we want. We found 2 just recently that would not have been available to us were they not let go from the previous employment because of cost reductions in various locations. So for us, it hasn't been a problem, and we're looking for machine learning, artificial intelligence people, and they're rare, but we found a couple. So for us, it's been good so far.
Yeah, for us, much like Jay, we've been able to find some fortunate bright spots in this whole COVID situation. One of those is finding talent. The other thing is that we've cultivated a really good remote working culture. We have 3 North American offices, and that represents about 70% of our staff, and the other 30% are spread out all across Canada and the US. So for us, really the most fortunate thing is that we hire, full stack engineers, people that work on web-based software that runs this gamut from, front end, interface type of stuff, all the way to like back end, the database interactions and things like that. And so what we've been able to do is hire virtually without a geographic boundary. And so we hire within both the US and Canada predominantly, and we've been able to really find the cream of the crop, so to speak, when it comes to talent, because we're not limited by trying to hire in one specific city or geographic location. So for us, it's not been an impediment or a barrier. It's actually been something that has been quite fruitful.
That's good. And I'm glad that you mentioned about Canada, US, North America, because that takes me into my next point. Both of you are operating and selling on both sides of the border. And there has been, or I'm sure there is, significant regional variation. Adjusting for population, where do you see, or where do you find that you're getting the most interest and traction? And what do you attribute this to?
So I'll go first. We get the most traction out of the US. We do have a pretty decent sized customer base within Canada. But there's two things right now, is that the US, especially amidst COVID, is a bit faster at making a decision. So when it comes to government, in the US especially, there's a lot of autonomy given all the way from federal down to state, down to local municipalities, cities, counties. And they all have the ability to make their own purchasing decision, and they have their own budgets. So we're seeing a lot of traction out of the US because just how government is structured slightly differently. In Canada right now, there's a bit of what I would term analysis paralysis when it comes to making purchasing decisions, because the local cities or municipalities look to the provinces, and then the provinces often look to the federal government, and it's a bit of a circle. So we're definitely finding immense traction in the US, and Canada is a matter of time. But right now, especially amidst COVID, there's not an immense amount of traffic or traction coming out of Canada.
There's two ways we segment our business. One, a sort of retail versus security, and the other is geographically. And on both of those metrics, I believe Mexico is probably leading the way. Mexico is our largest retail deployment. It's also our largest security deployment. When we landed in September of 19, we landed a $10 million 3-year deal for 40,000 cameras deployed for smart cities in Mexico City. Of course, that's along with a partner that's based there in Mexico. It also happens to be the place where we have historically done the most retail engagements, although the US will probably eclipse Mexico on the retail side this year when we deployed a very large drug retailer starting in July. That deployment's underway right now, and it's scheduled to go to about 3,000 stores. So in that will rapidly eclipse revenue line for Mexico. But of course, on the security side, Mexico still seems to be the place where we've done the most. And frankly, we have probably a great deal more traction on the security side in the rest of Central and Latin America, because they have unique security issues there that we don't have in North America. We don't have in Canada or the USA, but they do have issues in Latin America and across the board. So it's a place where if you're selling security products, it's a good place to be present.
We had a question that just came in, and I want to make sure I don't skip this or ignore it. What catalyst do you expect in the next 2 months for visibility?
Well, we have a couple of very big deals in the hopper, and you're always in a situation where you're ideally pursuing multiple large deals. And I think for us, the strategic relationships that we'll be announcing between now and Christmas will really, I think, crystallize the company's direction, focus, energy, and effort. And one of those will be based in Latin America, and one of those will be based in the USA. Really, that's as much as I can say at the moment, but we're excited about those. Those will both be enormous crystallizing events for the organization.
Thank you. And thank you, Sam M., for the question. For HealthSpace, this is just sort of my own, your competition, your competitors for government contracts. What would you say your differentiator is? That's part one. And part two, what is the easiest level of government to deal with?
I love that latter part of the question. So on the first half, our biggest differentiator is our product suite. I touched on it that there's a lot of friction when it comes to deploying digital solutions with government, and the majority of the vendors in this space, and there are some, Tyler Technologies is one of our largest competitors just from a size standpoint. These are multi-billion-dollar conglomerates within the government technology space. And the unfortunate thing about adopting technical solutions from a governmental aspect is that you have to pick and choose, and you typically get different products depending on your use case. So a really quick example of that would be if an environmental health department, which inspects restaurants, hotels, etc., wanted to go in with the public health department, which covers communicable diseases such as COVID-19. If they wanted a digital solution and they weren't looking at us, they would likely have to purchase two different products with two different interfaces, no commonalities between them, no digital bridges that really cohesively connects the two. With us, we have one product suite for every single customer, and it's configured and tailored to each individual use case in a very compelling and powerful way. That is our biggest standout differentiator. In terms of the question of how did you phrase it, Barrington, which are most difficult to work with?
What level of government? Because I'm sure, you know, you have your federal, municipal, regional, local, depending on what country you're operating in. You know, some are bipartisan, some have different agendas, which is going to lead me to my next question regarding the election and how that affects your business. Yeah, what's the easiest one to deal with?
So for us, we sell exclusively into state and local agencies. We don't really typically deal with the federal government, especially in the U.S. Federal government, the way that it's structured in terms of our core customer bases. So we typically work with agencies that do a lot of regulation on either a private business or citizens or handle communicable diseases. So hyper local type information. So think about, you know, they're tracking stuff down to a specific zip code. The federal government doesn't handle that kind of information, and they don't need that type of technology. So when it comes to us, there's really a hard line that we typically only sell and work with state and local government agencies. And so to really split the two in terms of, is there any differentiator? Not really. Statewide purchases typically take a little bit longer because you've got a larger body in terms of decision makers to get out in front of. But when it comes down to really in terms of working with them on a day in and day out basis, there's not a lot of differences between working with like a province-wide deployment or a statewide versus a citywide deployment. So for us, it's pretty even keel.
Thank you for that. Visibility. This is more of, I guess, just of interest for myself, because you started naming all the pinpoints when you talked about age and height and sentiment and all of those. How many data points are you able to gather from your technology?
I never really had that question before. We have 5 critical KPIs: age, gender, sentiment, proximity, and one other one that's just off the top of my brain at the moment. But there's several hundred measurement metrics, but they're not all meaningful. Right. So in fact, gathering up data as it is not all that meaningful. It's just raw data. What's valuable, and Silas, this impacts his business as well. What's meaningful to our customers is not the data itself, although it's somewhat interesting and meaningful. It's the insights. What can you drive from the data that creates actionable intelligence? And an example would be, I've learned that most of my liquor is sold between 6 p.m. and 9 p.m. on a Friday. I'm making it up. And the buyer of that is X demographic and X gender. Now I can do things in my retail that will help to optimize or promote in those time periods, and therefore maximize the fact that I've got that traffic in my store, and now I've got the opportunity to market, surgically market directly to those persons. And retail is desperate for that data. Never had that data before, and are looking for ways to optimize the store experience because of that data.
Sorry. So I was
going to say I would piggyback on what Jay was saying just briefly, because there's a term that was kind of coined and floating around there at least a few years ago, that data is the new oil. And really, I couldn't disagree with that notion more, simply from the standpoint that information is power, and the ability to proactively have some sort of insight or notification into what that data is telling you. That's what people are buying. They're not buying access to the data. They don't want, millions and millions of information points. They want concise, informative decisions. And really, so, I just wanted to underscore what Jay said, since he did mention my name as well, which I appreciate, Jay. That is one of those things that it's not the data itself that matters. It's what you do with it.
We got a question from Jason. For visibility, is retail object detection off the shelf a capability?
Great.
Possible cashless shopping cart in the future? Thank you, Jason, for the question.
We have it. Thank you, Jason. Great. Obviously educated, because that's exactly where computer vision is going. I sketched in my little diatribe there a significant offense opportunity. There's ways to monetize shelf, create more revenue in store. That's the offense side of it. But there's a defense side of it as well. The defense side of it is, how do I make my operation more logistically efficient? And a way to do that is using camera technology to identify things like out of stock, inventory issues, what they call in the trade planogram compliance. A shelf is supposed to be built in a certain way, and the measurement of that against what it's supposed to look like versus what it actually looks like, that's a computer vision problem. And the reason why that's relevant is Unilever pays $1 million a year to Safeway for 3.5 feet on the third shelf in every 14th aisle in the nation. So if that's out of compliance, Unilever's not going to pay their bill. So planogram compliance is a big deal. Inventory management is a big deal, because now it's connecting to back of house. And all these are a challenge for computer vision, machine learning modules, object detection, all this to identify. And the last point, real quickly, we're actually engaged in an initiative right now, which will result in a product concluding probably November, which is exactly what Jason said, which is cashless transaction that is connected using object detection, voice-enabled kiosks. We're all worried about touching things now, and all of that for retail connected to all our technology. So it's exactly where the industry is going, precisely.
Question for Silas. Do you expect more contact tracing deals?
Yes, we do. Yeah, one of those things that has come out of COVID that was fortunate for us is, for those who aren't aware, we've been selling a contact tracing solution that we really call a workforce multiplier, that enables the automation of what would typically be done manually, either by, a contact tracer getting on the phone and calling someone who's potentially exposed. We automate that whole element through text messages and emails. And so that is very much still a viable market. One of the things I'll say in terms of how these public health departments that utilize us for contact tracing, what we've actually started to see is that they're utilizing us for much more in-depth uses beyond contact tracing. So contact tracing was really our intro into the public health market. And for us, what we've seen is that they're utilizing it for all manners of disease surveillance, from patient monitoring, keeping up with real-time stats on, their tests and the labs results. All of that information has to be digitally stored somehow. And these, we've kind of carved out a new niche within the public health sector that far spans just contact tracing. But we do anticipate deals, yes.
I'm going to jump into the investor. And are there any milestones that investors should be watching for? Let's go to visibility.
Yeah, so success to us. I didn't talk much in my little presentation about how we're responding to COVID, but we're a computer vision company, as I've said a couple of times here. And with our product embedded in kiosk platforms, it's going to change the way COVID has forever changed the way we go to work, the way we attend a sports event, those sorts of things. So you're going to see entry mechanisms in place. And entry mechanisms mean not only will I be checked for my identity when I go and show up in a commercial building to attend a meeting or to show up for work, my identity will be validated, because now a stranger represents a biorisk in the commercial building. Never before has that person represented that risk, but now they do. So we'll be doing facial recognition, core capability, connected to employee database, you're allowed in the building. And we'll also do thermal detection for the presence of symptoms. If you're allowed in the building and you're running a fever, you're not going to be allowed in the building. Or if you do get in the building, now we have a track and trace capability, because we know it's all covered by audit trail. We know when you came in, we know who came in before you, we know who was in the building there. All that information is now building the protocols for a brand new way of conducting commercial building safety and workplace safety. And visibility's role in that is because we do display, we do thermal and facial recognition, and we do access control, all of that built into our software, embedded into hardware systems that do that, like an immigration kiosk might do at an airport. We're now doing that for buildings. And that's a brand new thing for us. It's a huge milestone, and that marketplace is exploding at the moment.
Silas?
For us, really the catalyst in terms of, on the near term horizon is it's really a land grab. We, sell into government agencies, and they represent a geographical, physical area. And for us, it's all about, customer acquisition and more customers acquisition more frequently. Our sales pipeline continues to really swell, and we have new deals coming in nearly weekly. And those typically close out in kind of droves. So for us, the near term really is about closing a batch of deals. We have numerous ones that we predict to come in before the end of the year. And so for us, it's really about really penetrating the government sector in terms of both environmental health and public health, two separate agencies, two different customer bases. This is a multi-billion-dollar marketplace we sell into. And so we're just taking down one customer at a time, and we're filling up our sales pipeline. The other thing that we're looking into is, more government agencies. So our software is applicable to virtually any sort of government agency that has a regulatory need to track information and has, vast data collection requirements. And our software, our cloud solutions are really directly applicable to any sort of government agency, even though we only really talk about 2 or 3. We're identifying other areas. So another near-term catalyst is to watch us as we get into other areas of government beyond just environmental and public health that we talk about the most.
One more question each, and then I'm going to finish off the question. Visibility. What does wearing masks because of COVID mean for computer vision?
So we have two. It means 2 things. When facial recognition works properly, it actually reads landmarks on the face. Now I can get super geeky and talk about the periocular region, which is the region between the eyes. We need 20 pixels. And that sounds geeky, but I'll break it down. An HD frame has 800,000 pixels. We need 20 pixels between the eyes to get a fairly high confidence that Barrington is Barrington. That's facial recognition. If Barrington decides to put on a mask, we lose some confidence. So if Barrington was reading at a 97% certainty that this is Barrington, because we have a probabilistic outcome, not a deterministic outcome, it says with this probability, this person is Barrington. It doesn't say yes, no, it says probably. When you put on a mask, that 97 might degrade to 77. So when we lose foundations, when we lose landmarks, we lose certainty, but we don't eliminate certainty. So just like when we apply our technology in the Middle East, where women wear a burqa where you can only see the eyes, well, the eyes are everything. As long as I can see the eyes, we can still get a hit rate on facial recognition. So even though it's impacted us in terms of it's lowered our probabilities, it hasn't eliminated our certainty because our software allows for that adjustment to be factored into the software. The second piece is because of some protocols in some areas, masks are required. So we can use cameras to determine if people coming in are wearing masks. And if they're not wearing masks, we can provide an alert. So those are the 2 places where we've been impacted by the masks.
Thank you. And thank you, Miroslav. Dave is asking for Silas. You've announced some smaller deals recently. Do you expect any larger deals, quote unquote?
Good question. And I'll just say real quick, Jay, I appreciate you letting me know how to avoid, facial recognition if it's just the bridge in between my eyes. It's good to know. In terms of larger deals, yes, we have numerous large deals in the pipeline, a couple that we anticipate before end of year that are closing out. One of the things about government is that, 80% of the marketplace, as within most businesses, your enterprise deals are only a very small percentage of your overall customer base. And so for us, every single sales win matters immensely because those smaller deals, what they typically do is they build a compound factor and create a lot of pressure, so to speak, on the surrounder larger agencies. So if we gobble up 3 mid-size or smaller counties, that typically creates a groundswell that makes it easier for us to sell into the larger city that they may surround. So make no mistake that usually smaller wins predate larger wins. But we definitely have a couple that we anticipate before end of year.
Thank you. And we are going to close out the session with one last question. If you look back over the last 2 years in developing your technology and products, what is the one or two things you wish you knew then that you now know?
So I'll go first, Jay. It's an interesting question. It's a good question. The one thing that I would say that I wish we knew was really nothing. And I say that a little tongue in cheek simply because the world has evolved so rapidly. And we've been able to forecast a lot of what is happening within state and local government. I would say that, sure, the only thing would be if anybody knew COVID was happening, but nobody really could have predicted that one. So for us, our software is built on decades of experience. You know, our team, I myself, have been a part of thousands of software deployments collectively in the government space, and we set out to do something so radically different. And so, in a lot of ways, it may sound self-congratulating or a little braggadocious, but it's just the truth. We've planned our product so far in advance in a way that virtually no vendor in the space is doing. That we haven't hit a point yet that I would say, oh man, really wish we had done that. But right now, at the stage we're at, there's really not a lot of regrets from a product pipeline and development and software capability standpoint.
Yeah, mine is similar, although maybe it's got a little less bragging in it. I think we've been enormous beneficiaries of Intel, and Intel has taken a shine to us because we develop within the Intel ecosystem. And what that really means is that, you know, you've got multiple lanes that you could pick in, and you could pick when you're developing your product. And particularly in AI, there's sort of two warring camps at the moment. And Intel is the trailer on that. And they're not used to being in a trailing position. This is difficult for them. But the good news is they're putting hundreds of billions of dollars into AI. And we selected a long time ago Intel as our solutions partner. And we didn't really let them know at that time how committed we were to their platform. And in the last year or two, we've let them know, and they're getting behind us in a way that is just remarkable. We're delighted. They're pushing us. They're bringing us to revenue impacting deals. They have become a customer themselves. And so I guess the lesson learned is, had we known that possibility was there, we would have done that a lot sooner and probably be a little bit more advanced in every way at this moment.
Well, thank you. And thank you to our presenters, Jay Hutton, Silas Garrison. And it says to thank the moderator, which is kind of weird, thanking myself, but sure.
Thanks, Barrington.
Thank you to our attendees for your time today. Go to the company's websites and learn more about these companies. As well, James Black has been putting up Public Entrepreneur in the chats. If you want to learn more about these two fine gentlemen and their companies, check out the magazine online. Now let's bring on Grace Pedota for our closing remarks.
Thank you, Barrington. So I just want to say thank you to everyone who joined our session today, and thank you to our presenters. You did a fabulous job. And thank you to our moderator, Barrington. You did a great job today. And when you have a moment, go to the CSE TV on YouTube. I provided the link in the chat, which should appear on the top right corner. This session, along with all of our other really great content, will be published on CSE TV. And make sure to tune in next Tuesday for medical device technology. Companies will be in the private sector. Thank you again for joining Tech Tuesday.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.